Buenas noches. It's great to be with y'all tonight, and thank you for all the hard work you do advancing the rights of those with disabilities. Florida has a red tide problem. Red tide in our water kills fish, stings our eyes, burns our lungs, and it just smells. But we have a red tide problem in Tallahassee as well. And as that red tide moves through the governor's office and the Florida legislature, it kills democracy, suppresses voters' rights, and the way they legislate, it leaves a really bad smell as well. For the last 3 years, our current governor has picked and chosen which Floridians he wants this state to work for. That's why I'm running for governor. We need a true public servant in the governor's mansion, one that is committed to making this state work for everyone. Part of making this state work for everyone is making this state accessible to everyone. I got my fighting spirit from my father, a World War II pilot who taught me that when the cause is just, you get in there and fight. I needed that fighting spirit while growing up and needing 19 corrective surgeries for my cleft lip. I needed that fighting spirit again when he was kidnapped by the FARC, a socialist terrorist group. And as a senator, I used that fighting spirit to fight for resources to lower the Florida's Agency for Persons with Disabilities waiting list, which currently has over 22,000 Floridians on it, some waiting as long as 10 years. Last year, I passed a law that required that agency to create a roadmap for people with disabilities. The current generation of disabled people is the first to outlive their parents. My law helps families understand what they need to do to help their loved ones become independent as possible, as well as plan for the eventuality when their caregiver is no longer present. Another bill I passed last year for students with disabilities became model legislation for other states to emulate. This bill literally transforms lives by revising the IEP for students with disabilities. It is a workforce bill that begins the process of transition planning for students with disabilities at age 12 or 7th grade instead of 14, so that these students can begin high school with job and independence training through transitions programs. I even was named Autism Speaks 2021 Legislator of the Year for the laws I have passed for people with disabilities. I have been able to do this as a Democrat in a GOP majority legislature. Imagine me as governor. How much more we'll do? Now, for the last 5 years, I've been the Senate sponsor of Medicaid expansion. Expanding Medicaid won't just give nearly 1 million Floridians access to health insurance, but also drive down the cost of all of our medical bills. Right now, Florida has what I call a sick tax. This $2,000 sick tax is attached to our hospital bills. The hospital doesn't pay for it. Our insurance doesn't pay for it. We pay for it. This is a huge barrier to care for the vast majority of Floridians. Right now, 38 states have expanded Medicaid. Have you heard of a single state that did it and then decided afterwards that it was a bad idea? No, that's because expanding Medicaid is hugely beneficial to so many people, especially those with disabilities that need affordable access to care. So when I tell you that I'm ready for a tough fight, I mean it, and I learned that lesson in college. I decided to run for student council. I put up posters all around the university that said Annette Taddeo for secretary. And on the day of the election, as I headed out to vote, my posters no longer said Annette Taddeo for secretary. They said Annette Taddeo for deportation. I lost that election, but I gained so much more. You see, in that moment, I knew I could be angry or bitter, or I could allow it to strengthen and inspire me. That day, I decided that I would run for public office someday because no matter the color of our skin, our gender orientation, the way we look, or the accent we have, what makes this country great is the strength in our diversity and our belief that in America, when the cause is just, you need to get in there and fight for what's right. We've been up against long odds before. In 2017, there was a special election to replace another bigoted Republican. The cause was just. But I had party bosses calling me and telling me not to run, saying it couldn't be done. And we did it. We made history when we flipped a seat from red to blue for the first time in a special election, and I became the first Latina Democrat in the Florida Senate. And then we got reelected. This is a district Trump won by 6 points. Let me close by telling you why I believe we can win no matter the odds. After we won that special election in Florida, one of my first invitations was from my alma mater, the University of North Alabama, to give the commencement speech to the graduating class of 2018. Leading up to it, I questioned if I should share my student government election story. I worried how a story like mine would be received in a deep red state like Alabama. But ultimately, I decided I needed to tell the story because it's bigger than me, it's